I'm going to start off by welcoming the amazing Linda Thomas, who happens to also be my mentee. She is a nurse with Toronto Public Health with over 20 plus years experience. Let's give Linda a huge round of applause. Linda, over to you for the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credits.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much, Linda and Simone. Good morning, everybody. You can see me there on the screen. My name is Charmin Ismail, and I am the program lead from TESS. So let's see some emojis coming in from our TESS colleagues. Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're very excited to have you join us for this powerful conversation on Black leadership. Today's panel is a unique opportunity to hear from leaders who've navigated the path to success, overcome challenges, and achieved remarkable growth. We hope their stories will inspire, motivate, and equip you with valuable lessons on your very own leadership journey. Here's a quick overview of our agenda today. Following my introduction, I'll pass it along to my colleague Danielle Smith, who will take a moment to reflect on the African ancestral acknowledgement, honoring our shared heritage. And then we'll take a moment to remember our colleague CJ Grant from Toronto Shelter and Support Services. CJ was an inspiring panelist last year, and unfortunately, she left us earlier this year. Following that, we'll introduce our dynamic group of panelists, and we're very excited for that, who bring a wealth of experience and insights. Then we'll dive straight into our engaging panel, where our leaders will share their journeys and their perspectives. Finally, time permitting, we'll open up the floor for audience questions. So keep your questions ready and please post them on the chat if anything comes up throughout the panel discussions. I'll pass it along to Danielle to lead us in the African ancestral acknowledgement to honor our shared heritage. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Charmin. The City of Toronto acknowledges all treaties peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. I'll pass it to Simone to take a moment to remember CJ Grant now.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and thank you everyone for being with us today. As you know, my name is Simone Richards, and I'll be doing a short tribute for CJ Grant, who was our panelist last year. So remembering CJ Grant, also known as Carol Grant, was fondly known in Toronto Shelter and Support Services. She was a beloved colleague and a supervisor of social assistance in the Women's Residence portfolio. Her sudden passing earlier this year was a profound loss for all who knew and worked with her. Many of us will remember her contributions to last year's Black Leadership panel, where she joined as a fellow panelist and generously shared her insights and experiences. It's a memory that continues to inspire and guide us all. And in addition to that, our division has also developed the CJ Grant Humanitarian Award in her honor because of the impact that she's had. And today, as we reflect on her legacy, we invite you to join us in a moment of silence in her memory. And thank you. Now I'll be sharing a clip from our panel last year.
Interest of time, I think my branding is authenticity and genuineness. I am not one that is going to the rat race and stabbing Pam on the back or pulling Adjoa down. It is my style. I signify success is my success. I work with them to be the best that they can be. We'll sit with them, discuss what the issues are, what they can do better to advance themselves. So as they do well, I do well. It's not about me, it's about them. So my time and energy will be put into helping staff to be the best that they can be. That's just my few words in the interest of time.
Thank you, CJ. We honor and we remember you. And with that, I'll now pass it over to Delaney.
Interest.
Thank you so much, Simone, for that heartfelt tribute to CJ. There's no doubt that we missed her presence. So thank you again, Simone. Okay, so before we dive into our discussion, let's take a moment to get to know our esteemed panelists. Each of them has a unique story and, well, the valuable experience that have shaped their unique leadership journeys. So I invite you to listen closely as Charmin, Daniel, and I read their bios that highlight their accomplishments and contributions. So firstly, I am privileged to introduce my two panelists from TS3. First, we have Natisha Cohen, who's a Street Outreach Programs Officer with TS3. And Natisha began her career with the City of Toronto in January 2019 as a street outreach worker with Streets to Homes portfolio, which is a program that's dedicated to providing street outreach services and housing support for individuals that are experiencing homelessness. And over the years, she has grown within the division, taking on the roles of shift leader, program supervisor, and currently, as I mentioned, she is a street outreach programs officer. And with more than a decade of experience in supervision and management, Natisha has developed and led community outreach, life skills, and mentorship programs. Her work has focused extensively on supporting vulnerable and marginalized populations, both locally and internationally. So in addition to her and she's a true educator at heart, and she's passionate about equipping individuals with the knowledge and skills that they need to thrive. So, one reason why she's here today. Throughout her career, she has demonstrated a deep commitment to fostering positive change in the lives of those experiencing homelessness. In addition to her professional expertise, she is a strong advocate for self-care, particularly when it comes to addressing trauma and mental health, with a special emphasis on the Black community. And she believes that understanding and healing from trauma is a critical part of building resilience and empowering individuals to move forward. So we are really happy to have Natisha. Natisha, welcome to our panel today. Secondly, we have Chadwick Gould, Supervisor Programs from the Travelers Hostel portfolio. And Shad has dedicated over 26 years in the field of social services, including 19 years in leadership roles. Throughout his career, he has had the privilege of working alongside diverse communities and advocating for the rights of individuals who are often unheard and marginalized. He is a proud graduate of George Brown College and is deeply committed to advancing equity and justice. He's also a strong advocate in the fight against anti-Black racism and remains dedicated to ensuring that Black individuals are recognized and valued and treated equitably across all areas of society, which is why he played a key role as one of the founding members of the working group that launched this very mentorship program in 2021. He is a passionate advocate for career growth and development, and in his current role as a supervisor of programs at the Travelers Hostel, he continues to champion those opportunities that help staff thrive. So we are delighted to have Shad, and again, Shad, welcome to the panel. We are so happy to have you as one of the founding members of this mentorship program. Okay, so I'm going to now pass it on to Charmin to introduce two panelists from TESS. Over to you, Charmin.
Thank you so much, Delaney. And I think all my folks from TESS and everybody else already knows I am extremely honored to introduce our TESS panelists for today. But before that, I need to see those emojis. Yes. Okay, let's get excited. So our first panelist is our very own Vanessa Garrett. Vanessa is a dedicated and strategic supervisor in TESS with a proven track record of leadership, strategic planning, and conflict resolution. Vanessa brings a dynamic blend of professional experience and personal passion to every endeavor. As a facilitator and lead of numerous office projects and committees, Vanessa has consistently demonstrated the ability to guide teams through complex initiatives, fostering collaboration and delivering measurable outcomes. Currently serving as a mentor in our program, Mentorship Program for Black staff, Vanessa was also once a mentee in the very same program. This full circle journey reflects a deep commitment to growth, leadership development, and empowering others to reach their full potential. Beyond the office, Vanessa is a passionate health and wellness advocate and a lifelong athlete. When not leading work initiatives, Vanessa can often be found at the gym, continuously pushing personal limits and encouraging others on their very own well being goals. Driven by purpose, grounded in integrity, and committed to continuous growth, Vanessa brings a well rounded, intentional presence to both personal and professional pursuits. Let's give Vanessa a very, very big round of applause, and we are so excited to hear from you, Vanessa. Okay, awesome. All right, I'm going to be introducing our next panelist. Can we see a round of applause for Orletta Campbell? Okay, so Orletta works in the risk management office. Orletta is an accomplished social worker professional with over 2 decades of experience in the public sector, currently serving as a risk management officer with TESS. Orletta is a registered social worker with a master's degree in social work from York University. Orletta has dedicated her career to advancing equity, integrity, and access within social systems. Her extensive background includes frontline service delivery, program oversight, and crisis intervention, most notably through her long-standing roles within TESS as a caseworker and also as a child access program coordinator at the Catholic Children's Aid Society of Toronto. She has also contributed to the academic development of future practitioners as a contract instructor in the social service worker program at Sheridan College. Beyond her formal roles, Orletta plays a vital part in fostering inclusive leadership. She has been an active mentor in the mentorship program for Black staff, providing guidance to support Black professionals and help shape a more equitable and empowered workforce. Her dedication to professional development and community advocacy makes her an invaluable asset to TESS. We need a round of applause for that as well, and to the broader social service field. Orletta is guided by the belief that opportunity does not stop at red lights. Orletta continues to lead with purpose, compassion, and deep commitment to social justice. Again, a huge round of applause for Orletta and Vanessa. You may have seen them at the career fair recently, so we're really excited to have them and bring them on this panel to address our questions and have a discussion. So thank you, Orletta, and thank you, Vanessa. I'll pass it along to Danielle to introduce our TPH panelist.
Thanks, Charmin. So from Toronto Public Health, we have Rene Doku, who's the Supervisor of Nursing Quality Practice. So Rene has been with Toronto Public Health for over 20 years and has extensive public health nursing experience working with diverse communities. She played a role in establishing the social determinants of health nurse position in the former Healthy Communities Directorate and has collaborated with various city divisions to integrate a public health perspective into youth engagement and human trafficking prevention initiatives. Rene has preceptored numerous nursing students and internationally trained medical professionals, and she's currently a mentor in the mentorship program for Black staff. She's deeply committed to empowering others to reach their full potential, both professionally and personally. So a round of applause for Rene. Thank you, Rene, and all of our panelists for being here today. Back to you, Charmin.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and thank you for introducing Rene. We're so excited to hear from all our panelists. Now that we've learned more about our panelists' impressive career journeys, let's dive into what promises to be an insightful and empowering session. We'll explore their experiences in detail with regard to their transition to leadership. As you may have noticed, a lot of our panelists are middle management to senior management level, so we want to ensure that this is something that you can relate to during this session. And the insights they've gained along the way. So, all right, just wanted to share that. Let's get started because you don't want to listen to me anymore. You want to hear from our panelists. So, our first question, we're going to be talking about the career journey. So we're going to be asking a question to two panelists and talk about their specific career journey. And this is the question. Can you share your career path and any key experiences as you transitioned into your current role? What challenges did you face in building confidence as a leader, and what strategies did you use to overcome them? And we'll hear first from Vanessa, and then we're going to hear from Natisha. I will also post the question in the chat as well so that you have access to it. Vanessa, let's hear from you first.
Thank you, Charmin, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me today. If I can play a small part in assisting staff in advancing their career, I'm honored to do so, and I'm extremely happy to be here. So I would say that my career path has progressed naturally to leadership. When I first started with the city about 16 years ago, it was on a part-time basis with the city manager's office. So at the time, I was helping out with a project. The contract was only for about 2 months. So while I was there, I was actively searching for another internal position, and I was successful in securing another part-time job, but within the Parks and Rec division this time. So there I was facilitating programming for participants in a program. I believe that's where and when the building of my confidence began. By nature, I'm more of an introvert. So I was challenged, though it was self-initiated, to facilitate and lead a program for a diverse population. So it was a bit of a sink or swim experience, but I was okay with sinking. Basically because I was looking to build that mental toughness and work through my fear of failure, because I had previously been paralyzed, doubting my abilities. So having said that, I was up for the challenge, and I knew that I had that end goal of eventually getting into people leadership. So as the contract was nearing, the end of the contract was nearing, I was applying to many positions. One of the positions included the caseworker role within TESS. So I was successful in securing that position, and my journey just continued. I continued to not only seize opportunities, I would also intentionally seek out opportunities. And there were times that I didn't even recognize myself because, as I mentioned before, I was an introvert, and there I was kind of putting up my hand to facilitate and lead these initiatives. So it was a bit of a surprise for me. What else can I say? That there were also times that also documentation. The documentation of my goals was key for me, because it created something tangible for me to track my progression. So essentially, I was creating SMART goals without even realizing that I was creating these SMART goals. I ensured my goals were specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. SMART. I was trying to remember what the acronym was. So I not only did this in my professional life, but I also did this in my personal life. I mentioned earlier that I was an introvert. So that was a little, different for me. I was also really adamant of mastering my skills through continuous learning. So I was challenging myself with participating in new projects, tracking my successes. There you go with the documentation again, just to remind myself of my abilities. I also wanted to cultivate a positive mindset by focusing on my strengths and reframing my negative self-talk, because negative self-talk is a real thing. It is a real thing. So after several years of progressing within the caseworker role. That's where I got my foundation from. I learned the policies, the procedures, and that's where I really seized the opportunity to build my leadership capacity. That's when I applied for the Supervisor Direct program within TESS, and that's where I am today. And my journey will not end here. I continue to document my progression and my goals, and I would say that's doing wonders for my confidence building. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. A huge round of applause for Vanessa. I want to share that it's not easy to come and speak on this panel, and that you being an introvert and doing that speaks volumes to your dedication and commitment. So thank you. I just wanted to say that was amazing. And I also really liked how you mentioned the sink or swim and the fact that you're willing to sink to be able to move ahead in your career. Thank you so much, Vanessa. And I will pass it along to Natisha from TSSS. Thank you, Natisha.
Good morning, everyone. I actually love this question. So for me, when I first came to the city, I had a tunnel vision. Because I'd experienced before in the field, as well as services, my thought was, how do I move up as fast as possible? So as soon as I came in, I learned the environment of which I was within, working here at Streets to Homes. I began as a frontline worker. And I think what's really important if you're looking for a journey of growth is really believing in yourself. I look back on this, something I did very boldly, maybe my first couple of months. Those of you who worked there for a while might have remembered Stephen Linton, who was a Street Irish Programs officer here at Streets of Homes. And I remember I met him and I said, hey, one day I'm going to have your job. Very bold thing to say being a new person. But that proclamation actually brings me to actually being in that job currently. And and he said, what, I believe you. And what I did to really help myself grow is, it might sound weird saying this, but champion the jobs that nobody wants because they're actually really important in the division. Again, champion the jobs that nobody wants because they're actually really important. So for me, I love training, love facilitating. I found my way of being in the training committee because those things, again, that's a leadership role that helps you to get recognized, but also build your leadership skills. So that was really, really important to me to really expand on facilitating. Another thing is SMIS. Those of you know that SMIS is very crucial in our division. So I became a SMIS champion. Nobody really wants that job, but it's actually really important. It's like at the crux of the work that we do. So I became a champion that, developing training modules and that, so really finding ways to latch onto things I knew were really important, but no one really wanted to champion. For me, I really wanted to see what leading was like within this program, so I applied to be an AR shift leader. So it's my first, maybe within 8 months of working there, I became an AR shift leader because it's a really good opportunity to learn of what it is to shift lead. You actually are functioning as a shift leader. So really looking for those opportunities that are leadership driven and give you more exposure, right? So with facilitating, it takes you outside of just your program, but across the division or other divisions as well. That interdivisional connection, really, really important. I think also with SMIS, it connects you to so many other programs. Really learning different programs within this division is really important, or your division. I know there's a few different divisions within here, because I think sometimes you can focus more on your pond too much, not realizing the opportunities for growth outside of that. So for me, it was really finding ways to be part of different committees that are really important to the growth of the program and the division. And then so I moved along into shift leading position. Those of you who worked here through the pandemic, there was a lot of opportunities that really came about that. So it's really important to say yes to opportunities that come, even if you're scared. I know Vanessa had mentioned it before, but really saying yes to things, even though you're scared, because you build confidence of actually walking through those roles and learning. But also, I think really important for growth and leadership, whoever has your role in a different program, get to know them. Build those connections, relationship, because they can show you things that are beneficial that can work in your program, but are also they're facing the same challenges as well. But I think really building confidence is putting yourself out there. You may have ambitions of growth, but you don't speak about it. And if you're not speaking, no one knows that they can help connect you different opportunities. So I feel do not be afraid to speak on the things that interest you, but even understand. I think really looking at the divisional work plan it gives you an idea of what the goals are for the division for that particular year. See what different initiatives or programs are connected to that could really help you. I think there's so much opportunity to seize that will help you grow within with any leadership ambition you might have within your division or program that you work in. So I think, building confidence at that is actually doing. Not just thinking, but the doing helps you build confidence. I think also training is very important as well. I think there's things that I think a lot of times you learn in the moment of doing the job, but also training is a great opportunity. There's great training platforms we have here at the City of Toronto, but also seeing what you can access that can help you grow. I think it's really important to even applying for opportunities to not be afraid. I think there's many times that I wanted to apply for roles and thinking, I don't have enough experience or I don't think I could be able to do that. But again, I'm quite frank, some of the most underqualified people apply for things and they succeed in those jobs. So imagine you having the qualifications, doubting yourself, and not taking the opportunity to try. So I think really the building confidence is in the doing. So I think these are some of the things that help me overcome. I am a very confident person. Those who work with me in Streets of Homes know that, but also you can be confident and still need to build confidence in within the work that you're doing as well. So I think it's really owning the work you do and just really being a champion in the ways that you can. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Natisha. And hats off to you for, taking those jobs that nobody wants, turning them into opportunities that eventually build your leadership skills. So, listen on participants. You got some great tips from Vanessa and Natisha. I think the main takeaways that I heard was, seize those opportunities, take on those challenges, and don't be afraid to go out there and show yourself and, walk the talk. It's not just enough to think about what you want to be, but also not just believing yourself, but also, taking those opportunities and actually applying for those opportunities that are out there and not to be afraid to do so. Okay, and Natisha mentioned something that is relevant to our next question about, who you know. So as the saying goes, success is not just about what you know, but who you know and who supports you along the way. Very important to have that network built around you. So with that in mind, our next question to our two panelists would be, how did you build a network of supporters or advocates during your career journey? And in what ways has that network contributed to your success? And what advice would you give to Black staff on how they can develop their network of supporters? So firstly, we'll hear from Shad, and then I'll pass it on to Orletta. Shad, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming on this rainy day to get some important, valuable information. Thanks for the question. Personally, for me, I had to find my niche and my skill and what I was good at, what I really wanted to do in the field. I found early in my career working with the homeless youth population was where I wanted to lay my roots and my foundation. I think one thing that we all need to realize, and that is vitally important, that is you can learn something from anyone, whether it is a manager, whether it's a supervisor, whether it's your colleague. No one comes into the field knowing everything. So you have to be humble and willing to get information from people in order to grow. I work diligently for myself at building my skills and abilities to gain knowledge and awareness of the themes and happenings in the particular area of interest. Applied for jobs once I was confident and was to my liking and successful. How I built networks, and maybe I'm dating myself a little bit because back in the 2000s, we never had fast internet or social media and stuff like that, right? we had something called the Blue Book. It was a giant type of information book, almost big like an encyclopedia, where you had to go through and find agencies and stuff like that. So for many of us back in those days, you literally had to go through those books, make the phone calls, get contacts, set up meetings, solidify and cultivate those partnerships, and start doing your growth. Job fairs were also a big way to grow your networks back in those days, rubbing shoulders with different agencies and businesses. Again, cultivating relationships is very important. It's not just about collecting a business card and just putting it into your wallet or into your Rolodex. It's about having those conversations, solidifying it by following up with those people and growing your network. I also did a lot of volunteering at other organizations in order to grow my network. I think my advice for Black staff is find out the direction that you really want to go in. Find your passion. I find nowadays that there's a lot of people that will just apply for anything. And it may not be important to them or valuable to them. Find out what your niche is, find out what your passion is, apply for those jobs. And once you start building your networks, ensure that it is authentic, meaningful, and impactful for you and for other people. As I said before, just don't collect business cards. Actually follow up with those phone calls, solidifying those relationships in order to grow your network. And for myself, I believe over my 25 years of working, the allyship and networks really helped me grow to be who I am today in the job that I'm doing. As I mentioned earlier, you don't know everything when you're in this field. You don't know everything within jobs. Reaching out to other people who may be that network person, that ally person, your colleague, getting that information helps build your repertoire and who you are as a person. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you, Shad. I think Shad raised a good point about not just, getting those contacts, but also maintaining your network. Very important, right? Like following up with your network and solidifying your relationships. And also looking at unconventional ways, like volunteering, for example, right? To build your network. Okay, so I'm going to pass it to Orletta next to let us know your insights about this question. Orletta, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Delaney. So I'm going to tack on to some of what Chad said and some of what Natisha said as well. For myself, when I think back on my career journey, what stands out the most is that in terms of building a network, it didn't come together overnight. This is something that is built slowly. You had to be intentional about it. And sometimes through trial and error, sometimes the person that you think could be a part of your network, it just doesn't happen for that reason, for what reasons unknown to you. And you don't always have to know. I made sure that I made connections with people who not only recognize my skills, but do they respect the perspective that I bring? Do they recognize that I have something unique to add or to contribute? This meant reaching out to allies at different levels. I think a lot of times when people are building their network of supporters, we tend to think of the hierarchy going up, but your network of supporters can be at all levels. I built my network from colleagues, managers, senior leaders, also my peers as well. So there is value in everybody to support you on that journey. A lot of times when volunteering for lead projects, for instance, I think people tend to think if I make the right connections in management, that's going to help me to develop this portfolio and to be seen. Being seen sometimes is not enough. You have to be valued. And for me, I realized early on is that sometimes your peers are the person volunteering for the project, and they're the ones that call your name to say, you know what, you need another caseworker, you need another whoever it is, and they may suggest you as well. So it's also important in terms of building your network of supporters. I know it's very hard, especially for Black staff. From a cultural perspective, we're taught, you move in silence. You don't tell everybody everything, which is true at times, but there's also value in voicing what it is that you want for yourself. I will share something my mother always told me: closed mouths don't get fed. If nobody knows what you're interested in, nobody knows what it is that you want for yourself, they can't help you get there. And no one gets to where they want to go on their own independently. We all get help, we all get support. It just looks different for all of us. So it's important that you share what are your ambitions, and also to share what are the things that, not just what you really want to do, but what are the things that you don't like. For myself, being in my current role in risk management, I got to this place by sharing with my people I consider my mentors, some who are on the line today. I shared with them certain aspects of other avenues to advance in the organization that just didn't really fit well with me and my personality. So I expressed to them, you know what, I really don't like that role, because they're the ones who let me know, do you know that there are other roles that look like this? I didn't know about roles like the current role that I'm in. I found out about these roles by sharing with my peers, not only what my ambitions are, but what are the things that I don't like. And it's important that whoever is in your network are not just people that are going to, we all like the good feeling, but it shouldn't just be people who are just going to tell you how great you are. You really want your network to be a network of people who are also going to challenge you, who are also going to say to you, you know what, well, you don't like that. What is the reason you don't like it? What are you going to do to change that? And for me, the peers that I had in the people I had in my network really did do that for me, where they challenged me. Even when I said I didn't want to do things. Tagging on to what Natisha said about taking the project that nobody wants. Sometimes it was those same mentors in my network who said, I want you to do this. I want you to consider this. And when I said I did not, because they challenged me on the why do you not want to do it? It forces you to engage in that self-reflection, because a lot of times I think we tell ourselves that we don't want something. And the reasons we're saying we don't want it, it's us just being in our head. I know for myself, I can get in my head. I think it happens to most of us. But again, building that network who you can be transparent and authentic with, letting them know you not only on a professional level, but on an individual level is very helpful. I will say my current manager, she knows me well. She gave me a call before this before this presentation, because she knows me. She knows I'll get in my head and she'd be, what is it? What are you thinking? Let's talk it through, right? She only knows that about me because I let her in. So that vulnerability is also part of building your network, to ensure that the network that you build is serving you well as well. Thank you.
That's amazing, Orletta. Thank you so much for sharing that. I don't know if people are actually capturing some of the diamonds that are being dropped by our speakers. Closed mouths don't get fed. That's amazing. I love that. Thank your mom for that quote. I think that's pretty fantastic. One of the things that when we talk about the idea of networks, there's this idea that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So one of the things that's really kind of interesting is think about who do you spend time with, and what are they bringing to you? How can they help you? How can you leverage them as you go through? I'm having so much fun. Thank you everyone for all your gems. The next question, we're going to be talking about the fact that most of the people here are unionized staff, and when you actually move into a leadership role, you move from being a unionized employee to a non-union employee. So how did your experience actually working in a unionized role prepare you for leadership? And what are the skills or experiences did you find to be most transferable? What advice would you offer to others looking to transition from a frontline unionized position to a non-union role? So before I'm going to hand it over to our fabulous people, I'm just going to put this question here in the chat.
I put in the chat already, NT.
Oh, son of a gun. Look at what's happening here. This is one of the people that I hang out with. So obviously I'm learning lots. So I'm going to go to someone who I've had the absolute pleasure of having a few great conversations with. Just so you know, I am new to the city. I just joined in February. And one of the first conversations that I had with someone in the nursing practice was Rene. And Rene, I had such a lovely conversation with Rene. Rene made me feel so welcome and made me feel that my words mattered. So thank you, Rene, for that. I'm going to ask you to answer that question first, and then we're going to go to Vanessa, who is a new friend for me. I'm excited to learn more from you as well. So Rene, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you, NT. Thank you, everyone who organized this, and good morning, everyone. It's actually an honor and a pleasure to be here, although I am quite nervous, but it's good to be nervous, as NT said. That means I care, which I do. So this question is a really good question, and I've reflected on it. And the thing that came up for me the most was soft skills. I know oftentimes people always want to look at, what do you know? What are your computer skills, your other technical stuff? But it's really mostly the soft skills that are the most important and actually the most transferable. The soft skills include like just how you talk to people, how you problem solve, your teamwork. And one of the pieces of advices that I got from a manager who actually was somebody who has since retired, but when I first started in public health, she sort of mentored me, and then I saw her rise through the ranks. And so I had asked her, like, oh, how did you become a manager? How did you get into that position? And one of the things she told me, which has stuck with me, was to always be solution focused, identify problems and concerns, on your team and the workplace. And instead of like complaining about it or not doing anything, just come up with an idea, come up with a solution, consult with your colleagues, really try to work to solve the problem, and really respecting your teammates, respecting the manager. The position may not be the person. Obviously, we don't get to choose who manages us, but respecting the position is more important, and really looking to develop skills that will carry you through regardless of the position that you have. Volunteering, I heard earlier from my colleagues that went earlier, volunteering for projects. That's something that I had done, especially ones that you see that there's hesitancy or reluctance in getting people to be involved. Really, stepping out, and you may not know it, you may not know what to do, but one of the quotes that I've heard is that, having courage is, and, just is still being afraid, but still doing it anyways. Still just even though you might not feel qualified, you'll have the skills and the opportunities along the way. So don't let that hinder you or make you feel reluctant to participate. And then, of course, like as a nurse, I have professional standards and obligations. So, maintaining that, following that, but always having a spirit of excellence. That's one thing that I try to do, is I always try to give my best effort, try my best all the time. And really, I think Chad had said it, we don't know everything, but there's people around us that can help us and can work with us and help us to shine. And as they're helping us to shine, we're also helping them to shine as well. So I hope that answered the question. Yeah.
Can I just ask a sub question?
Sure.
You said that soft skills are so important.
Yes.
Was that something, were you always good at soft skills?
I'm so sorry, I can't remember the first person who spoke who said she's an introvert. I am as well. So I wasn't always good, but I'm a good listener. And I feel like that's a really good soft skill. As an introvert, you tend to listen more than you than you speak. So I've had to push myself to be more out, like not necessarily outgoing, but push myself to not always be in the background, to show that, you know, I'm present, I'm here, because sometimes you might get overlooked. So it is something I have to work on. So through volunteering, through you know, surrounding myself with people that will encourage me, because I think part of the thing is we have doubts with our soft skills, right? We might not feel like we're a strong communicator, or we're not a strong leader. But being a leader is just a frame of mind, and it's not really about a position. It's just how you lead yourself, how you lead other people, but most importantly, how you lead yourself. So I hope that answered your sub question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. You weren't being paid for that extra question. You're only paid for that first question. So I apologize for adding a little bit more
That's
onto that. But
okay.
thank you
That's
so much
okay.
for
That's
that.
good.
I love the fact that we're going from one fabulous introvert to another fabulous introvert.
Yes.
So Vanessa, over to you. How would you answer that question?
Thanks, NT. Thank you so much. In terms of my experience, I want to center my response around I can't forget where I came from. I know that frontline staff is the foundation of the work that we do at the city, and everyone else supports them. So I'm privileged to know and say that because I was in that role not too long ago, and I know that staff want to be seen and feel heard, and as they should. And although management is responsible for making the final decisions, it is very much influenced, or at least it should be influenced by the staff. So frontline staff have much influence for change to happen. So having said that, in preparation for a leadership role, reviewing the competencies of the role that you're interested in is key. I just mentioned influence. One of the competencies of my role is continuous improvement and innovation. So when I was considering applying for leadership positions, I did the preliminary work in terms of having that kind of that foresight and anticipating obstacles and consequences and thinking ahead about the next steps in all of the work that I did. So having the ability and willingness to communicate effectively, not only to those who I reported to, but also to my colleagues. I think communication is a skill that is transferable in any leadership position within the city. I know everyone on this call is affiliated with this mentorship program in some capacity, and we all know that this program is very heavily mentee-led. In my bio, which Charmin read, it was mentioned that I'm a former mentee of the program. I had an amazing mentor, shout out to Tamika. I was given the autonomy to be put in the driver's seat, and my mentor was right beside me in the passenger seat, helping me navigate my career journey. But I was the one who steered my way like along the path. So I know that Chad referenced passion about the work that we do earlier. And if you are passionate about the work that you do, people will notice and they will become champions for you. So they will mention your names in rooms that you're not physically in, just to echo what Orletta was saying about networking. Another piece of advice that I would offer to those who are looking to transition from a frontline position into a leadership position would be to master your craft. I know confidence seems to be like a running theme today, but confidence comes from competence. So the more skilled and knowledgeable you are, the more confident you'll feel. That and the accountability competency, we're all on a journey. This is trial and error, and it's okay to make mistakes as long as we ensure that we are seeking feedback and learning and growing from our experiences. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to hand it over to Simone in a second, but I just wanted to say, you brought up the idea of foresight, and you brought about the fact that you have to look ahead. Sidebar, my husband just got a master's degree in foresight, and I thought he was, are you going to become Miss Cleo? I don't understand. What is this foresight thing? But one of the things that's really kind of interesting from my perspective is you have to look ahead, right? You have to look ahead at what you want, and you have to really visualize. Vanessa, were you visualizing as well what that would look like being in that role that you wanted?
Visualizing and writing it down. I know I spoke about documentation and setting my own goals earlier in this meeting, but to me, if it's not written down, it may not happen. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But yes, definitely visualizing and writing it down. And it's also good to like track your progression and to see where you came from, which is the kind of the key that I wanted to, I guess, a theme that I wanted to take when I was entering this question.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Simone, over to you.
Thank you, NT. Thank you, Vanessa, especially for that last reminder that we're all on a journey, which is so important for us to remember. Having said that, navigating career growth as Black professionals has often meant overcoming systemic barriers, making it essential to recognize and seize opportunities even in challenging environments. So my question for the next two panelists is, what advice do you have for Black staff when it comes to recognizing and seizing career advancing opportunities, especially in environments where they may feel overlooked? Feel free to use examples from your own career journeys where you successfully navigated obstacles. So let's hear from Natisha and Orletta. And before we go to Natisha, as we are nearing the end of our panel discussion, I want to remind you all that if you have any questions for our esteemed panelists, please put them in the chat and we will read them out during the Q&A section. Natisha, over to you.
Thank you, Simone. One thing I would say is really important to consider, and is why we're all here today, is mentorship. Mentorship is so important. I would definitely say I'm the product of great mentorship. I think it's really important to seek mentors within your programs that you're working, but also the people you work with in your program you already have access to. Seek mentorship outside of your programs and outside of your divisions, because it allows you to have more knowledge of things you would never have exposure to. I think, I myself have been participating in the mentorship program for many years, that since in the inception, and I realized how important it was to receive mentorship, but also don't be afraid to be a mentor. I think some of the staff that are probably here that might be shift leaders or other roles that might be in middle management that think they have nothing to offer. You have a lot of skills to offer. There's someone that's looking to you for their next step. So also realizing that you have skills that you can share. You have opportunities to help grow people where they want to be next, while you're also working on your own growth. And I think, as a Black person working in corporate, it is you can often feel like that there's opportunity that you're overlooked for, where you feel that you have the skills for that you really feel that you should be more have the opportunity to to flourish in. And I think when you have those instances, it's thinking, how can I make sure that next opportunity is mine? Not looking at the defeat of maybe the particular opportunity, but really taking advantage of, receiving feedback or doing informational interviewing or even mock interviewing, but also aligning yourself with people who actually work in the roles that you want, whether they're your peers or whether their level is higher than you. They can actually give you more insight to those roles that you're really looking for. So I think, when you feel overlooked, think of how to make that an opportunity for yourself to create more growth and more skills and experience. And that's something that I did myself. I think there's roles that I've held that I actually didn't even pass the written assessment. And, it can be defeating. Even if you acted in a role and have not passed the assessment, it's kind of like, what does that mean? I'm already in this role acting. How am I not actually passing the actual competition? But, don't be defeated by that. Think about what skills are missing. Am I giving my skills and experience, like really delving into what I actually do and actually giving a good step by step. I think a lot of the times when we're pursuing opportunities within the division, that we kind of rely on who might know us and not really talk about what we actually do, or rely on what's on our resume, but not really talking about the work that we actually do. And that really is important to speak to what you're doing. So I think when you're navigating different obstacles within trying to line up this position, just think about, how can I learn from this opportunity or this disappointment? How do I make it an opportunity for something else in the future? So really just thinking about Again, mentorship is very important. And since you're all here, you already made the right first step and continue to do so, but also see who can mentor you outside of your programs or portfolios or your divisions that help you for other opportunities. And again, if you ever feel overlooked, take it as an opportunity to develop your skill and to continue. I think don't look at it feeling defeat. I think a lot of times we can feel defeat. And you can sit in that disappointment for a while, but think about how am I going to pivot it for another opportunity for myself, like look back on this and saying, you know what? I may not have been successful this time, but now being in the opportunity that I am now, where I've actually have come full circle and actually got the desires, you know, you can see the growth of how you got to where you are now. So really, don't downplay the growth that you have in working towards things. And again, if you're ever disappointed, it's always an opportunity for something else. So always pivot at disappointment for another opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's show Natisha some love for that. Not defeat, as I like to say, it's not rejection, it's redirection. And Natisha, you had mentioned mentorship is so important when aligning yourself. And that speaks volumes to me. I also want to give Chad a huge shout out, who's here with us today, as he was one of my mentors off the books. Chad, in front of all these people today, thank you so much for, you know, your continuous words of encouragement and pushing me to reach for the stars. Everything you said is of true value and something that has truly impacted my life. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Chad. And now we will pass it over to Orletta.
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on a lot of what Natisha said. I think we have similar viewpoints. I think recognizing and seizing opportunities is such an important question, especially for Black professionals. As Natisha said, it often happens that we know we're qualified, but the doors don't necessarily automatically open for us. I have experienced that myself. You have that feeling of being overlooked, having your own ideas being dismissed until someone else repeats them, then your idea, you know, somehow matters. And that can be defeating. But at the same time, it's what do you do with that? So I think for me, the shift came when I just decided I'm going to stop waiting for opportunities to be handed to me. I'm going to frame it around the things that my mentors, going back to the mentorship, that they told me that you're ready and you're ready now. And so what are you going to do about it? I recognize that, you know what, I don't really need permission to grow. So I asked for this opportunity, or I tried for an opportunity. It didn't happen, but I'm still ready at this time and I want to grow. So how am I going to do that? So an example for me, going back to taking on those roles that nobody wanted. When I was a caseworker, the LEAP caseload, which are, you know, they're teenage mothers, challenging group. Nobody was putting their hand up to say they wanted to take this on. Put my hand up for that opportunity, and then I started working it. I didn't get the caseworker lead, project lead position that I was looking for to support, like an ICM. And then I said, well, how can I do that on this caseload? I'm going to take this caseload that nobody else wants, and I'm going to demonstrate my skills. I'm going to use it as an opportunity to do what feeds me, which is supporting this vulnerable population. And I'm going to show them that I could do exactly that, what I was not selected for. And I just simply did it on a smaller scale, on my own caseload, you know, networking with community agencies and community partners. And I was able to demonstrate that I have those skills and that ability. And I'm going to make this work look differently. And I'm going to achieve an outcome that they didn't expect. And again, it's you know, sometimes people will recognize you, and other people, sometimes your peers would say, like, why are you doing so much work? That kind of thing. You can't let other people's words discourage you. You really have to decide that, you know what, if this is what you want, this is what you're going to do. Advancement isn't always just about promotion. I think we get stuck in that I'm not advancing if I'm not being promoted. Sometimes advancement comes from, like Rene said, building those soft skills networking with certain individuals, having opportunities that you didn't think that you were going to have. And all of these things prepare you for those bigger roles. They're stepping stones, right, to those bigger roles and those bigger advancements. Sometimes when something doesn't come your way, there's a reason. But at the same time, as Charmin said at the top of the event here, I live by opportunities don't stop at red lights. So if an opportunity presents itself, you have to go with it. You cannot tell yourself that now is not the right time, I can't do it. It will never be the right time. There will always be something to stop you on your path. You have to make a decision, and you have to go with it. Whatever it is that you need to do, you make your vision board. For me, I write things down. I often write the phrase, my poor husband, he'll see it on the mirror and he'll just have to deal with it. He's like, why is this here? I will write, you can do hard things. This is just a reminder to myself when I'm going to go into something new that maybe I'm not feeling the most confident about. You can do hard things, and we can all do hard things. It's a matter of how you're going to get there, and your path doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Some people here shared that they are introverts, and other people here shared they're extroverts, but yet here we all are in a leadership role, right? So we can all get there. It just looks a little bit different for some of us. And lastly, what I would say in terms of recognizing and seizing career opportunities is to lean heavily on that mentorship. Many of my mentors are even here today, and it showcases your impact. You want to make sure that you're taking on training opportunities, that you're voicing out loud the things that you are interested in and the things that you feel challenged by, so that you can get support with that. This way, when the opportunities do come, you are ready, right? You will be in a great position to move forward. And I always say, like for me, I always say, keep your career receipts. When you do something, whatever the outcome is, make sure you're documenting that, make sure you're saving that. And these are things that I have learned from my mentors, is that make that big project that you did, even the projects that you did that maybe failed, make sure you're documenting that too. That's a career receipt as well, because it's the lessons learned from that. What did you learn and what would you do differently, right? Everything is a career receipt. And lastly, what I will say is that don't shrink yourself because you're waiting to be seen, because you will wait forever if you're going to shrink yourself waiting to be seen. Sometimes we have to make ourselves visible. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's show Orletta some love for that. Go for it. If it's what you want, go for it. Look in the mirror every day. Tell yourself, I'm going for my dreams. Reach for the stars and continue to reach. Thank you so much, Orletta. I'm going to pass it over to Inti.
One of the things that I love, Orletta, is you talk about the idea of, a stop sign or a red light. Yep. It's actually kind of an opportunity when I think about it. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this, on my sort of reflections, that when you're at a stop sign because you wanted to go for it, but you're at a stop sign or you're a red light, it actually gives you that opportunity, that blissful opportunity to reflect. And think about what you just went through and what you learned and all that kind of stuff. Is that true for you?
Yes, definitely. Sometimes when you are stopped at that opportunity, that is your time to do that self-reflection, to say, well, what is it that maybe I can work on? What skills are perhaps I'm missing? I think that was mentioned by some of the other panelists here today, where, that's sometimes your opportunity to say, what am I missing? Or how can I gain that skill, right? Like, perhaps they chose somebody else because maybe they demonstrated something that you just didn't demonstrate well. It may not be that you don't have the skill. Maybe it was just your demonstration of it. This is why it's also important to solicit that feedback, because sometimes when we get stopped, we get in our own head and we tell ourselves why we got stopped. We don't know why. You need to ask. There's nothing wrong with asking the question, to say, why not me? And get that feedback, and then utilize that feedback to help yourself push forward.
Amazing. They say that breakfast of champions is actually feedback. So thank you so much, Orletta. I appreciate that. We're going on to the next question. You know, Michelle Obama, I don't know if you guys know about her, but she said that your story is what you have, what you will always have. It is something that you own. So building a personal leadership brand is all about owning your narrative, shaping your future, and influencing others through authenticity and purpose. So with that in mind, how would you build your personal leadership brand, and what guidance can you offer Black professionals looking to create a brand that positions themselves as future leaders? So we're going to go to Rene first, and then we're going to go over to Chadwick. So we'll start with Rene.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. Such good questions today. And Natisha and Orletta just said a lot of the things that sort of tie into this question. Natisha spoke about defeat and not being defeated. And, you know, Maya Angelou has a famous quote that says, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated." So, you know, it helps us to learn to embrace adversity, discover our inner self, and establish resilience. And that's what Orletta was speaking about, just being resilient, not not letting challenge it, like seeking opportunities, making yourself known, especially being a Black person in the workplace. As she had mentioned, sometimes you do get overlooked. You don't, people don't hear what you're saying until someone else says it. So how do you then establish a leadership brand within this environment, knowing that, you know, it's not always, the doors are not always going to be open. Sometimes you have to push the door open, or, you know, even create a door or a space even for yourself. And you really have to examine who you are. And I think being authentic and leading from a place of authenticity, of being genuine, what guides you, what fills you. You know, it could be your faith, it could be you know, how you care for yourself, how you care for others, how you see other people. Really starting from a place of not seeking to be a leader because you want the power, but really seeking to be a leader because you know you can make a difference. You know you can help people, you know you can guide people, and you can inspire other people to be leaders, which is why I'm so honored to be on this panel with such esteemed colleagues who have such great experience, and they're so forthcoming with what they're sharing, and really tapping into that, and really knowing who you are first and foremost, and leading yourself. So for me, that would be sort of my leadership brand, is knowing who I am, leading myself, using my faith as understanding who I am and leading myself, and then understanding other people, and then leading other people. So being authentic, being humble, being empathetic, even recognizing my own strengths and weaknesses, right? So sometimes having that look at myself and saying, yes, this is where, you know, hearing what people are saying, definitely getting feedback, as was mentioned earlier, but also facing your own weaknesses, but not letting it limit you, but actually letting it help you to grow and be a better person. So even having a growth mindset, seeking opportunities, being committed to your growth professionally, personally, and also collectively. So when you're leading other people, whether it's in a position, you could be on a team or you could be in a position of leadership, but really seeking the growth of other people, knowing that everyone has potential, everyone was created for a purpose and for a reason, and knowing who you are, seeing that first, and then helping other people to find that within themselves. That would be my brand. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say right now. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Rene. I appreciate that. And you know, the thing that's kind of great about what you're talking about, the authenticity piece, I think that speaks so nicely with what you were saying, Chadwick, about when you're actually trying to build your group and people and trying to network. Don't just get, you know, business cards for everyone. Find your niche and find who you are and be authentic. So lots of similarities there. How would you answer that question, Chadwick, for yourself?
Well, Renee said a lot. I don't think I need to do any more talking, to be honest with you. But I mean, to add to that, I think that you have to have some deep self-reflection to define your foundation. Identify your core values, what principles will guide your decisions and your behaviors, what you would stand for and what you would refuse to tolerate. And Renee mentioned this as well. weaknesses and strengths. Notice how I said weaknesses first. A lot of people shy away from their weaknesses because they believe, you talk about it in an interview or in forums or whatever the case may be, and people are going to judge you on that. People should be taking the weaknesses, focusing on that to better yourself and to cultivate that skill and ability. So it becomes a strength, in my opinion. What skills are you naturally good at? I mentioned passion before, and what motivates you, what drives you when you're fully engaged. Passion is really huge to define that impact that you want to make. Again, Rene mentioned some great words there. Being humble as a leader, you have to be able to take a step back at times to listen to your staff and let them lead and you follow. I believe that when you can do that, staff really appreciate that and respect that ability. But for me personally, my brand's my reputation. I focus on my craft. I take time to ask questions, whether it's to my manager, my colleagues, again, the staff below me. We talked about it earlier regarding our networks and being able to get constructive criticism and feedback from our networks to be able to build. You have to be able to take a step back to reflect on that information you're getting in order to make those positive changes. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is your reputation. If you do good work, you're a good person. To me, my thing is being firm and fair. Most of my staff will tell you that's how I am. I'll go 110% for you if you go 100%, right? But you got to put in the work. Got to put in the work in order to get that support, right? So for me, again, at the end of the day, my advice for Black staff is focus on your reputation and building your reputation to something that you want and something that you would be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chadwick, where does your drive come from?
My drive comes from, again, the field that we work in. You have a lot of people who are disadvantaged and disenfranchised, people that are suffering for many reasons. I've worked with many folks who were, lawyers, doctors, had big businesses elsewhere in different countries, and then they've come to this country and they have nothing. They've turned their nose up to homeless people when they're, asking for change, and now they're in that same type of situation. I've worked with young people who experience family breakdowns, and they've been displaced because parents divorce sometimes and find a new partner, and then that partner doesn't want the person in the house. So those things from a young age, being in the field, has driven me to want to do this work and continue to do this work. Everyone's worth saving, in my opinion. And some days it looks very bleak and stuff like that, but I always say it to my staff, we have to be ready within that one moment to be able to provide that help, because it will come, but you just have to be patient.
But just thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you to all our panel members for not only your experience, but the passion in which you carry yourselves and the passion that you bring to the city of Toronto. We're so much better for having leaders like you. So thank you very, very much for that. So now we're actually at the point where we're going to get some questions. There were some questions that were brought up earlier on. So Eartha had a couple of great questions that she asked. Charmin, if you're okay, I'm going to ask one of the questions that she had posed, and then go from there. And this is a question I would suggest that anyone can answer Any one of our people on our panel. So when moving into leadership, how can unionized staff balance supporting frontline colleagues with meeting organizational expectations, especially when tensions arise? What skills should they be looking to gain to navigate these situations? So who'd like to take a stab at that question? Orletta, you took yourself off mute.
I'm just trying to see the question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, sure. When moving into leadership, how can unionized staff balance supporting frontline colleagues with meeting organizational expectations, especially when tensions arise? What skills should they be looking to gain to navigate these situations? So I'm just going to try to copy and paste it here.
Yeah, I did. Perfect. I think, I think it was said earlier about being solution focused, right? When those things arise in the front line, your role has to be part of the solution, not a contributor to the difficulty that you're seeing that's being presented to you, right? You don't want to be a contributor. You also don't want to just be a bystander who just kind of sits there and doesn't do anything. How about you identify how can I be a person who is going to be contribute to this from a solution focused perspective, right? Even when you are in the front line, your leaders, your supervisors, your managers, my experience anyways has been that most of them, they are willing to listen. And I have gone to supervisors to say, you know what, this keeps happening on the team. Maybe we should consider this. Put an idea out there, right? They are not immune to taking some feedback as well. And I think it was Chad that mentioned that we don't all know everything. Not because they're the supervisor or they're the person managing the office doesn't mean that they know everything, right? Sometimes when you're in the front line, you have knowledge and experience that they are just not privy to because of the position that they have. So I think if you approach it from a position of how can I contribute to this from a solution-based and a solution-focused perspective, it's something that will add to your skills as an individual, but you're also supporting the organization that you work for.
Yes, I would totally wholeheartedly agree with what Orletta said. And sometimes that requires you to stand apart. You might have to, as the person who's focusing on solutions and bringing forward suggestions, you might have to do it apart from what your colleagues and teammates maybe who are just complaining or being a bystander, like what you said, Orletta, being a bystander. It's true, right? Sometimes we can be bystanders, and not necessarily complaining about it, but being set apart and really standing out and taking advantage of an opportunity. So really seizing an opportunity.
That's great. Thank you so much, Orletta and Rene, for your insights into that question. So we're asking people, if you do have more questions, please put it into the chat. We do have a couple other questions that people sent to us ahead of time that we can go to. But if there are any other questions that we want to go to while we're waiting on the question, Charmin, do you want to ask the first question that we got ahead of time?
Sure. There was a question on the chat by Eartha as well. I thought I could ask that. It's, what was one challenge you faced as a Black leader moving up from a unionized role that helped you overcome it? So I wanted to speak a little bit more about challenges that you faced while moving up and becoming a Black leader in our divisions. I see lots of nods. So I know you face challenges. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but we would love to hear some challenges that you faced and how you overcame them and are where you are today.
Yeah, I feel like Natisha took herself off of mute, so we're going to put you on the spot.
But I see Chad's off mute. I don't want to cut him off unless he wants to go.
Chad just stayed off mute.
I think one thing that comes to mind, one thing that you experience that people don't think you're qualified for the job that you are doing. It's an assumption. Without ever seeing your resume or knowing your credentials, it's the assumption of that you can't be actually qualified to do the role that you're in. And, that could be very defeating because sometimes you hear it. You hear the side conversations. And, I think, it's really important just to know, just to ground yourself in knowing your skills and knowing what you're capable of. It's very, very important. Um, and just and don't let what others might perceive of you interfere with how you show up in your role. I think really walking into opportunities that you're in. If you're in the opportunity, it doesn't matter what anyone else has to say about that opportunity that you're in. You show yourself true in what you're doing. I think, and this is something that Chad was saying about your reputation. um, you know Integrity is so important. It's really important to how you show up in your role and how you um, present. And I think always walking in that, being consistent, that knowing that no one can say that you treat people a different way, that you show up in your leadership role, you lead, and you're always consistent and you're always operate out of integrity. Because I think as a Black person in leadership, the assumption is that, whether or not being qualified, but looking maybe, you know, um, some people may not want you to stay in those roles, if I'm being quite frank. Some people are rooting for you and some people aren't. So I think really, grounding yourself in the work that you're doing and, remembering that passion. Because I think also being in leadership, sometimes you might forget the reason why you're in the work that you're doing. And so just remembering, just continuing to be that example. I think I might have kind of shifted off what the question was, but I hope that speaks to somebody out there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would say is that it's actually much easier to tear someone down as opposed to help them up, right? So thank you so much, Natisha, for being someone that's easy to hold up because you're such a great leader. I appreciate that answer. We've got a couple of great questions that have been asked. So Samira is asking, many speakers mentioned having a great mentor. How can someone find a mentor, either formally or informally? We do have this opportunity with the Black Staff Mentorship Program. So if you do identify as someone that is Black, then you can reach out to people that are the program leads from the various different institutions and ask how you can participate in this program next year. But how would you find someone informally as a mentor without kind of going through a program? Does anyone have any experience with finding a mentor informally, not through like a structured sort of program as what we have here?
But I think that although this program is great and it's serving its purpose, I mean, these things are put on for a reason, right? And although we have 6 panelists that are speaking today, there's many people on the call who could have been on this panel as well speaking, right? If there are people who are interested in information and talking, I think it's as simple as sending an email and trying to strike up a dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Sometimes
absolutely.
Yeah, and sometimes
Sorry, go ahead.
sometimes just asking people about themselves, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's how they can mentor you. They can just
Mm-hmm.
share their story, their journey,
Yeah.
and you just build a relationship that way. And I think that's the best way oftentimes.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, for myself, I was not a part of a formalized mentorship program. All of my mentors in my 21 years at the city have been informal mentors. These are people who I maybe was interested in the role that they were doing. And like Rene said, I sent them an email saying, do you have 10 minutes to speak to me about your role? I just want to learn more about it. From that, a mentorship relationship grew. Other ways that I found mentors is in those little small opportunities that I think were talked about today that nobody else wants. Usually there is someone in management attached to that opportunity that nobody else wants as well. And what that meant for me is that's an exclusive relationship that you would have access to, because nobody else wants to be there, right? Sometimes it's a little bit of strategy, and sometimes it's a little bit of, you know, being a little bit vulnerable to tell people what it is that you want to do, or just asking people. I have asked people, you know what, I want you to be my mentor. They might say no, but what's going to happen? You're not going to melt. Life will move on. It's not the end of the world, right? We're going to be able to move on. And I honestly have not experienced that. People might say that, you know, maybe they don't have the time. I will say, even for myself in this mentorship program, I signed up as both a mentor and a mentee. And the person that I reached out to be my mentor already accepted other mentees, which is fine. But I still sent her an email and said, you know what? I would still be interested in having a conversation. 10, 15 minutes of people's time. Most people are willing to give you that. And she's been great and giving me feedback. And I know that that is the person that I can reach out to ask additional questions if I need to. So I don't have her as a formal mentor, but she's still a resource.
That's wonderful. And there's nothing wrong with having multiple mentors out there as well. So I don't know if you noticed, but it's time for our closing remarks. So I'm going to hand it over to Delaney for the closing remarks. Thank you to all our panelists.
Thank you, Wendy. Wow. You know, an incredible conversation. Sorry we couldn't get to all the questions, but we had such a great time. I think we can all agree that, you know, today's panel was just inspiring and grounding. So I just want to thank you all for being part of this inspiring event. A heartfelt thanks to our panelists today, Vanessa, Natisha, Orletta, Shad, and Rene, for generously sharing your insights and your time with us today. Your contributions are truly appreciated, and I'm sure will leave a lasting impact. And we hope the insights that you shared will guide and empower our audience as they navigate their career journeys and transition into leadership roles here at the city. And as always, I just want to remind you that today's session was recorded and will be shared in our spot page in the coming week. And I also want to thank everyone who took the time to share their thoughts and feedback via our ongoing surveys. So please share your feedback for the Inspiring Stories session and the leadership panel that we had today via the QR code shown on the screen. We've also attached the link on the chat. Copy the link so that you can complete the survey. And also want to mention that we're currently reviewing the feedback that we receive through the surveys that we've completed. And we are taking ongoing measures to improve your satisfaction and to remove any barriers so that we can enhance your overall experience. And I want to give you a heads up that for those who were at the career fair last month, we had an interesting feature, the professional headshots, which many of you took part in. We are finally ready to share those, so it'll be coming your way soon, hopefully by the end of the week. So stay tuned for that as well. Finally, please note that we will be having our next professional development webinar, which will be focused on resume building. It'll be on October the 9th from 11 to 12, led by Erin Daly-Reed, who's from People and Equity. And later on in October, we will have another interesting event that is exclusive to participants of the mentorship program for Black staff, which is our virtual speed mentoring event. So stay tuned for details on how to register for that as well. And mark your calendars and hope to see you in both of these events in the next few weeks. Have a great rest of the afternoon, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.